Minnesota House of Representatives Committee on Public Safety and Criminal Justice Reform will come to order. The clerk will take the roll.
Chair Mariani,
Present.
Vice Chair Frazier,
Present.
Representative Johnson,
Present.
Representative Edelson,
Present.
Representative Feist,
Present.
Representative Grossel, excused, Representative Hollins,
Present.
Representative Hewitt,
Present.
Representative Klevorn,
Present.
Representative Long,
Present.
Representative Lucero,
Present.
Representative Mueller,
Present.
Representative Novotny,
Present.
Representative O'Neill,
Present.
Representative Pinto,
Present.
Representative Poston,
Present.
Representative Raleigh,
Holly present.
Representative Vang,
Present.
Representative Zhang.
Present.
That concludes roll call with 18 present.
Very well. With 18 present, a quorum is established. This hearing is being conducted remotely on an electronic platform pursuant to Minnesota House Rule 10.01, Emergency House Operations in response to the COVID-19 infectious disease pandemic requiring public health exercise of social distancing. The public can visit the House website to view House Rule 10.01. And also you can go to the page site for this committee, Public Safety Criminal Justice Reform Committee, for instructions on how to view the proceedings via streaming video, as well as instructions for participating in public testimony. Members, we have 4 bills before us. Good bills. I'm looking forward to good conversation and action on these bills. Our first order of business, however, is to adopt our minutes. And while I look for the date, I'll also ask if a member will be so kind as to move the minutes of March 5th.
Mr. Chair, I will move the minutes of March 5th.
Very well. Vice Chair Frazier moves adoption of the minutes of March 5th. Discussion? Representative Johnson, voice vote is fine.
That would be fine.
Thank you, sir. All in favor of the Frazier motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion prevails, and the minutes of March 5th for this committee are hereby adopted. The first bill up, members, for today on Transportation Safety Day is from Representative Elkins, House File 1306. The chair will move to refer House File 1306 to the General Register. Representative Elkins, welcome to the committee. I think it might be your first time here.
It is.
At least this year. And your bill is before us. Please tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got some excellent testifiers today, so I'm going to keep my opening very short. In the nutshell, this bill provides the Metropolitan Council with the statutory authority needed to issue administrative citations for fare evasion on Metro Transit services. This in turn allows non-sworn personnel to issue a ticket and for the Met Council to handle the citations in-house instead of sending them into the court system. So at present, this is a misdemeanor. People are charged, but it's never enforced because the penalties are so disproportionate to the crime, which is really more akin to a traffic ticket than anything else. And the second testifier today, Will Shore, is going to be speaking to evidence about how, in experience, this approach has been far more effective than the current approach. So I think our first testifier today is Metro Transit Administrator Wes Koistra.
Very well. Welcome to the committee, Metro Transit Administrator Wes Koistra. Please state your name for the record and provide us with your testimony. It looks like you've got some slides up there coming through nice and clear. So please give us your name and proceed.
Mr. Chair Mariani and Representative Elkins, thank you for the opportunity to testify on House File 1306. For the record, my name is Wes Koister, and I'm the General Manager of Metro Transit. At this time, I'll mention that right now, my plan was not to go through the slides for the sake of the committee's time. My understanding was I would be speaking directly to the slides. Were providing a safety update for Metro Transit, and I can do that at another time. But today I'll focus my comments on the bill itself, if that works for both Chair Mariani and Representative Elkin.
I'm perfectly fine either way. If you're not going to use the slides, then we probably should stop doing whoever's doing the sharing. There we go. And then hopefully we'll get to see who you are.
Well, let me try to work on that. Thank you, Chair Mariani. I appreciate it. Increasing an official presence on the transit system and establishing a more welcoming and regulated environment remain really key to improving safety and our riders' transit experience. Administrative Citations Authority in House File 1306 would be a powerful tool towards this goal. Current law makes fare evasion a misdemeanor, as was mentioned by Representative Elkin, that can only be charged by a sworn officer. As a misdemeanor, fare evasion citations must be administered by the courts, and our experience has been that these citations are rarely prosecuted by local governments. House File 1306 would allow us to have employees who are not police officers inspect fares and issue citations. The resolution of these citations would be managed internally instead of going through the court system. We believe that administrative citations will be an important element of our overall efforts to improve fare enforcement. And this is especially important as we continue to build light rail and bus rapid transit lines that rely on off-board payment. Currently, off-board payments occur for more than 1/3 of our transit rides. This will grow when operations of Green Line Extension, the D-Line Arterial Bus Rapid Transit, B-Line Arterial Bus Rapid Transit, and other future transitways begin service. But we also believe that funding administrative citations will bring a much greater official presence on our system and create a more welcoming customer experience. It will not only increase fare checks and deter fare evasion, having more eyes and ears on our transit system will also deter crime and other problem behaviors. It will allow fare checks to be a less threatening experience. It will provide opportunities to educate people about our fares and our fare programs, and to connect them to the fare structure that is best for them. And it will allow us to better focus police time on crime response. It is simply a fair response to transit fare evasion. A misdemeanor enforcement of fare evasion results in a $180 cost and criminal record for not paying a $2 fare. This seems incredibly harsh. We should think about this as a comparison to a parking ticket, another form of penalty for not paying to use a public transportation service. We believe this harsh penalty for a relatively small offense contributes to the hesitancy to allocate limited prosecutor time to the adjudication of fare evasion citations. It is not that paying fares is unimportant. We believe a fair and more robust system of fare enforcement consistently and equitably applied will result in notable improvements in fare compliance. Similar changes are being made at other transit agencies across the nation, so overall administrative citations would be one important part of our broader efforts to improve transit security, perceptions of safety, and the overall customer experience. With that, Chair Mariani and members, I want to thank you again for allowing me this time.
Very well. Thank you, Administrator Koistra, and hopefully you can stick around in case there are questions.
Absolutely.
Very well. Thank you, sir. Next, we have Will Schroer from East Metro Strong. Please come forward, give us your name and your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Will Schroer. I am the Executive Director of East Metro Strong. And Chair, if you would confirm that you can see my slide there.
I can. It looks, they look perfect.
Very good. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for having me in front of the committee today. What I would like to do is to follow on behind the general manager and share with you some of the national experience and research into similar approaches. And I hope that that testimony will be useful to you.
Thank you.
So when this subject was raised in the previous legislative session, my board, and that board is 2 counties, 6 cities, several large employers, including Health East and M Health Fairview and the St. Paul Chamber of Commerce, asked, have there been experiences in other areas of the country with other transit agencies that we can learn from? Has this approach worked elsewhere or not before we take a position? And so we looked at the existing research at that time, and members of this committee may or may not be familiar with the Transportation Research Board. It's an arm of the National Academy of Sciences. And they had done a review of off-board fare payment and approaches to enforcing and working with customers around off-board fare payment in 2012. And their review and recommendations look pretty similar to the proposal that's in front of you today. Use a customer-oriented enforcement approach, do the adjudication through the agency and not through the courts, and use non-sworn officers to do that if fair enforcement and customer relationship work. But it was, so that sounds good, but it was also from 2012. And so my board asked me to try to update that research if we could. And the results of that were just presented to the Transportation Research Board's annual meeting in January, typically held in Washington, D.C., held online this year. But I would like to share with the committee the 2 relevant points are that it's recent research and that it has been peer reviewed at a very high level. So the results of that research are that it is common to use non-sworn, unarmed officers or other staff to do fair enforcement. And I want to take 1 second here, particularly in the context of the Public Safety Committee, to explain why the general manager and I keep using this somewhat awkward phrase, non-sworn personnel. So a sworn police officer is just what it sounds like. Many of the agencies that are listed here have non-sworn staff that are still part of the police department. And so we use the slightly longer term non-sworn staff because it would be inaccurate to say that they're not, in many cases, police staff. They are, in fact, police staff. They're just not sworn peace officers. So that's why we use that term. Agencies, as the general manager said, have picked up on the National Academy's recommendation in 2012 and increasingly are adopting this approach both to fair enforcement and to customer relationships. Most of these places treat non-fairmen as either a petty misdemeanor or purely an administrative citation, as is proposed in the bill in front of you. And I would emphasize 2 more issues or 2 more facts: that the units work closely with the police. And of course, if they're part of the same department, that doesn't come as any surprise. In cases where they're not part of the same department and they're hired as a third party, again, they work closely with the police. And this is not in any way a matter of replacing police in any way. And all of these agencies point to increases in public safety, whether or not those agents are tasked with improving public safety or only tasked with collecting and enforcing fares and talking to folks. From that list of agencies that have implemented this approach, we selected a subset to do detailed interviews with, and you can see the names of the folks that we interviewed here. And we also wanted to see if there were lessons that we could learn from local experiences. And I'm sure you're all aware that we have in both downtown Minneapolis and downtown St. Paul, somewhat similar approaches. They're not exactly the same, but I want to share lessons from those in a minute as well. So to a person, the chiefs of police and the others that we talked to emphasized a couple of different findings and lessons from their experience with programs like this. First, adding non-police staff lets police focus on policing. And second, that, and I'm repeating a little bit what I said 30 seconds ago, but I think it bears repeating, that the non-sworn staff work with the police to act as a presence and thus as a force multiplier. The police can't be everywhere. We may not, depending on your point of view, want the police everywhere. But in any case, the non-sworn staff are clearly additional eyes and ears at different places in the system where the police are not. And so if they see something that requires a police response, they can let the police know, and whether through that link to the police or simply through their own presence and their own relationships with the folks on the transit, they deter and reduce crime first through their presence, and then in all of the folks that we talk to emphasize this part as well by actively creating a positive culture on transit. And then finally, the chiefs of police underlined that an agency implementing this approach shouldn't necessarily expect a reduction in the number of calls to police. And so I just want to share that with the Public Safety Committee. You will certainly see fewer calls to police for non-police purposes. However, because there are more people out, more officials out on the system, you may get, in fact, more calls to police. So just a little bit of truth in advertising there that the dynamics can work out in a number of ways. So we also talked to the folks running both the downtown Minneapolis and the downtown St. Paul ambassadors program, and I'm not attaching that name to anything that might be done on the transit side, but that's what they're called in downtown Minneapolis and St. Paul. And their lessons very much echoed the lessons from the chiefs of police on the transit agencies, that the presence of additional people in uniform has a safety impact, and it helps create a sense of security for customers. We underline the people in uniform, which might seem obvious, but we do that in part because there are also discussions about having plainclothes folks out there, and to serve various purposes. Those have different. A plainclothes deployment might have a different purpose, but folks shared with us that the sight of a uniformed but not looking like a police officer agent produces these benefits. So that is a very quick trip through recent experience and research, and we wanted to share this with the committee to just help share what other agencies have learned. It's been remarkably uniform. It's hard to find an area of public policy, in my experience, in which there's so much agreement on what works. As the general manager said, agencies are really moving in this direction, and they're doing so for a reason. We didn't have time today to go over some of the recent expansions in these programs in other agencies, but agencies are finding that they're working and they're expanding their programs. And I hope that the committee will allow Metro Transit to take advantage of those learnings and do likewise. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll conclude, and thank you very much for your time.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Schroer, and hopefully you can stick around. We already have a couple questions popping up from committee members. I appreciate the sharing of evidence-based approaches, and in this case, pretty high level, of which pretty high level research has been done with peer-reviewed report and research that you brought forward. Representative Elkins, there is a public testifier, Amity Foster, and so I'd like to call Amity forward And then we'll switch over to discussion among the committee members. So Ebony Foster, citizen advocate, if you could come forward, state your name for the record and give us your brief testimony.
Sure. Hi.
Hi.
My name. Thanks. I didn't realize I'd be first up, so this is great. My name is Amity Foster. I'm with the Twin Cities Transit Riders Union, and up until COVID hit, I took public transit every day, multiple times. Now I take it 1 or 2 times a week, and I do really miss my transit community. We deserve safety, and that includes the operators, riders, everyone who is involved in our transit system. I've been on the train and bus when people haven't paid their fare. Usually it is brushed off, it's let go, remember to pay at the next stop. Sometimes though, it does not go that way. There are 3 or 4 transit cops who show up. They surround the person who hasn't paid their fare. That person is escorted off the train, and who knows what happens next. I want to tell you specifically about an incident on the bus that happened, I think, 3 or 4 weeks ago. Got on the bus downtown, guy got on, didn't pay the fare. He stood at the front of the bus near the driver. Driver said, "Pay your fare." Guy didn't, and it just sort of escalated, sort of like words back and forth. We went about half a mile to De La Salle High School, and the bus pulled over. There's a stop there, but nobody waiting, and the bell wasn't rung. Driver pulled over, cops showed up, and it just like escalated out of control. The guy was pulled off the bus. Another guy got up to videotape what was going to happen. And that's not safety for anyone on that trip. It wasn't safety for the riders. It wasn't safe for the driver. It wasn't safe for the guy who didn't pay his fare. What should have happened and what could have happened was a transit agent who's trained in de-escalation, who could have been like, "Hey, why didn't you pay your fare? Do you need the cash?" Sort of pulled him back, had the conversation that we all have on the buses. I just want to share that story because I think there's this idea that fare non-payment isn't being enforced. It is being enforced, and it is not working for anyone involved in the system. So we are glad to see movement of a bill that will create administrative citations for fare evasion, and that rider safety is being taken seriously by the start of the creation of transit agents. It's something that has been pushed for a really long time. So thank you for doing that. One thing I would like to flag about this bill is that it does not fully remove misdemeanor citations. And this is an opportunity to actually make a statement about our transit system and who gets to be safe, and a system as one that brings people in and doesn't leave them out, like doesn't create those more, doesn't create more barriers. So I think this is an opportunity to have explicit language that's, I don't know how you would write it, but that is like misdemeanor citations will no longer be issued by Metro Transit, police officers sworn or not, or transit agents. Direction is not enough for police. I think we all know that. So we can't rely on their goodwill and understanding of instructions from their supervisors. So thank you for the time to testify. I really appreciate it.
Very good testimony. Thank you, Ms. Foster, for painting a very concise and vivid example and picture of the points that you have eloquently made here today. If you could stick around in case there might be some questions, I'd appreciate that as well. Let me, Representative Elkins, let me just direct that last point by Ms. Foster to the General Manager, Wes Koistra. My understanding the bill, in fact, does not remove the misdemeanor language, but I've heard that that there is a commitment on the part of Metro Transit to not have that be the default decision. At any rate, if you could address that quickly, because I know it's one of the issues that will be raised throughout the bill's track. Mr. Koistra.
Certainly, Chair Mariani. our intent would be to implement the administrative citations and we would not have a dual system both administrative citations and issuing citations as a misdemeanor. For us, it'll be either opt in or opt out, but our intent is to opt in. The governor has asked us to develop this program using some of the availability of federal relief funds that have been issued to transit over the first biennium, and then bring back to the legislature request for continued funding in that regard. With respect to our commitment is to this approach to administering fares. We don't want to issue misdemeanors as a response to fare evasion. I've said in my testimony, we don't think it's fair. We think it's too harsh. It's just simply not effective. And frankly, we don't want our police officers in the business of fair citations as well, which is what is required today. So I think we're in pretty much agreement with the testifier in terms of what we think is the best approach, and we are anxious to abandon the current requirement of misdemeanor citations.
Thank you, Mr. Koister. It's just important to have it on the record. And Representative Elkins, I know that there's a legislative report prescribed in the legislation, and I think that's also touches on this issue, because they'll be reporting on the use of administrative citations, and obviously also reporting on overall impact of safety. So I'm just confirming that with you really quickly, then I'll turn over to Representative Rowley.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I served on the Metropolitan Council for 8 years myself, and this type of reporting was we were accustomed as council members to receiving this kind of reporting on at least an annual, if not a semi-annual basis from then Chief Harrington. And so I don't see these reporting requirements as being a burden on Metro Transit at all. Basically, they would be presenting to us the same information that they would report to their own governing board in the normal course of business.
Very well, thank you. And Representative Elkins, I've been told there's an additional public testifier, so I'm going to call on that person to come forward for their brief testimony. Finn McCarty. Boy, that's a good St. Paul name. I'm thinking you might be a St. Paulite. Please come forward, state your name for the record, and give us your quick testimony.
Thank you, Chair Mariani, and committee members. I'm going to really abbreviate it. I largely share the concerns Amity Foster brought up. I'm an organizer with Move Minnesota. This is some work we've been working on and organizing around for some time. And we do share the concern about a dual system of enforcement, not because we believe that Metro Transit isn't committed to administrative citations, but that not having decriminalization explicitly in the bill does leave that door open, and not just under this administration, but under further administration. And I did find some data from the Marshall Project. New York actually has a similar approach. While they do not have transit ambassadors or agents, their officers have an ability to either issue a civil citation or a criminal offense. Both the MTA and the District of Attorneys have actively encouraged civil citations, and while arrests have significantly dropped from 25,000 arrests in 2016 to 10,000 arrests in 2018, a dual system of enforcement was shown, where out of the 10,000 arrests that happened, there was a glaring racial bias present, where 89% of those arrests were Black or Latinx folks in the community. So I know I'm supposed to be brief, but I think the point is we really appreciate these efforts, but we do think it is important, not only for this administration, but for potential administrations who could apply the policy differently to do it right the first time and include decriminalization. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your advice and your testimony. And in case I missed it, if you can just state your name for the record, just to make sure that we've got it taped.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, Finn McCarty.
Very well. Thank you again. All right, we have 3 questions or comments, so we'll start with Representative Rowley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it very much. My first question, there's going to be a series of these, and they're going to build on top of each other. What is the current rate of rider payments right now?
And I think, Mr. Koister, that might be a good question for you, sir.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, what I'm looking for is the either a solid number or a percentage of overall ridership.
Very well. Mr. Questioner?
Chair Mariani, the current rate of fare evasion is estimated at 20%. We have not audited that amount that lately. We have added offboard fare payment systems since then. So I would estimate that on the offboard systems, it's about 20%. It's less on bus because on bus you're walking by an operator, and there's more of a sense of obligation when you're walking by someone next to a fare box. I don't have the specific figures. I will see if I can do better than that and get those to you. But I know it's been some time since we've done an audit. I would also maybe use this moment to mention that of those fare citations that we've issued, only about 3% have been paid and adjudicated. I think the last time we looked at it, there was a little over 1,900 citations that were issued, and 49 of them were paid. And this was getting to the point of my testimony of the hesitancy for prosecutors to adjudicate the fare evasion citation.
Very well. Representative Raleigh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And what is the goal of this bill as far as the increase in fare pay? And I want to make sure that I got it correct. Right now, the estimate is 20%. And is that 20% that are paying or 20% that are not paying?
Mr. Questioner.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Representative, it's 20% who are not paying, and that is an estimate. And I put some qualifiers on it because it's been some time, and I'll look back and see whether we have better data than that that I just provided. But that's the last estimate I've received for, and that applies to light rail and these off-board payment systems. In terms of the goal, we want everybody to pay their fares, and we think that through this process, the goals we've set out have been to build from a 5% rate of fare check to a 10%, up to a 10% rate of fare checks phased in to 5 to 7.5%, and then to 10% of fare checks. But again, our goal is we want everybody to pay their fares, and we think that this approach that we believe is a certainly less harsh approach than being approached by a police officer gives us an opportunity to also a better opportunity to educate people on how to pay fares, about what our different programs are and what might be the best program for them. We think like has been shown in other areas, that this will improve fare payment and do so in a way that really is more welcoming and friendly to our customers.
Very well. Representative Raleigh.
Mr. Chair, how many riders are we talking about? Because what I want to do is get an understanding of if we're going from 20% not paying and then we're going to have a different number of non-paying. How many riders are we talking about here?
And Mr. Questioner, I think probably maybe the more accurate question might be how many rides are we talking about? Because
right.
I suspect
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Repeat it, right? Yeah, Mr. Questioner.
Yeah, Chair Mariani, at this time we have about 1/3 of our system riders riding the parts of our system that are off-board payment on a normal year. Our total number of rides is about 270,000. So I think if I'm doing daily weekday rides, I think if I'm doing my math right in my head, that would mean about 90,000 of those weekly of those weekday rides are being are riding on these systems, and that's where most of these fare checks would need to take place. Certainly that's changed during 2020. We've lost significant ridership because we've asked people not to ride transit unless it's absolutely essential. So currently we're currently providing total weekday rides of about 90,000 a weekday. And so in the case today, it would be 30,000. It would be 30,000 riders on those off-board payment structures.
Very well. Representative Raleigh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if you've got 20% of the 90,000 not paying I think I've got the math. That's about 1,800 non-paying. It was previously stated that it's about $2 a ride. We're looking at about $2,700 in additional fees that are going to be paid, if I've got the numbers correct. And again, I'm writing down what was said. So we got about $2,700 in fees that would be collected if we went to 100% collection from our 20% not being collected, and hopefully, moving towards the zero. How many full-time employees will be required underneath this new bill in order to enforce this administrative, penalties or fees?
Mr. Koister.
Um, Mr. Chair and Representative, we think in the first year it would be approximately 30 full-time employees, 24 of those inspectors and others, including supervisors for the fair inspectors and the citation program administrator. We have to also have a method of adjudication. That would grow in 2023 to 54 inspectors. I'd like to add that I think that I understand the math that is being undertaken here, and I just want to again point out that there are multiple reasons to want to have an official presence on our transit system and increase the official presence. We have, especially in light rail, we have situations where there's issues of crime and there's issues of misconduct that we believe will be deterred by having more of an official presence on the light rail. It's not just a singular focus on fare evasion. We can't possibly have enough sworn officers to do that. I would give you an example with our buses. While the buses are not crime-free and they're not conduct issue-free, those issues certainly don't occur on buses as much as they do on light rail, because light rail has the operator in a cab, where in the bus the operator is in the full vision of the other riders. So there are multiple reasons. There's the issue of fare evasion. There's the issue of official presence to deter crime. There's the issue of providing a welcoming environment for our customers, which are going to be really important to us as we rebound from the pandemic environment, where we've lost so much ridership, and move back toward an environment where we want to welcome those who have left us back. So it's multiple reasons. It's not a singular reason. And I'm beginning to repeat myself, so forgive me.
Okay, members, we're closing in on halfway through our committee time. We still have 3 other bills before us, so we're going to have to pick up the pace in terms of.
Absolutely. I'll ask a question very quickly, Mr. Chair.
Very well. Representative Riley.
So these are going to be non-sworn officers, and the testifier just brought it up as far as adjudication. How will the administrative demand for an IT or for an ID from a fellow citizen, how will it not run afoul of the Fourth Amendment and the demand for the production of papers, Mr. Chair? And that's my final question.
Wow. Mr. Koister.
Mr. Chair, it's probably obvious to the questioner that I'm not an attorney, and I don't know that I can answer that question per se. I'm not even sure I understand it completely, and I apologize for that. But maybe if we can get that question in another way, we can try to have our Office of General Counsel take a look at it and answer the question.
Fair enough.
And Mr. Chair, just one slight point to that one, and it really comes down to the adjudication part, is if a citation is issued, through what mechanism is a demand being presented, but from a private citizen to another private citizen, and then how does that get adjudicated or heard, as far as, because the bill talks about the ability to have a non-judicial hearing in order to satisfy both the complainant and the complainor. But I'm just unclear how this doesn't run afoul of the Fourth Amendment, Mr. Chair. And I agree with the testifier that we should probably put this in writing and get a little bit more testimony on that. And with that, I'm satisfied, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, very good inquiry. Let's see if we can track that inquiry down as this bill moves forward. Representative Elkins. Representative Johnson, then Representative Novotny.
Chair Mariani, Representative Elkin, the testifiers. I'm intrigued with this bill. I do have some issues and some questions. Maybe to start with, Mr. Castilla, are these I'll call them conductors because on the trains, it's the conductors ask for the fares. Are they going to be in a uniform, a law enforcement's present style uniform? Are they going to be in civilian clothes or a conductor's uniform?
Quickly, Mr. Questor.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Representative, our intent was that they would be in a uniform. I don't know what the design of that uniform is at this point. That's part of the program construction, but we want to have an official presence. We want it to be a uniform. We don't want it to be a police officer's uniform per se, but we think it's important that they're uniformed and they provide an official look.
Representative Johnson.
Uh, Chair Mariani, members, I appreciate that. I do have some concerns because this bill doesn't talk about much about that, and it's giving us private citizens the authority to issue citations, even though they're administrative. Representative Raleigh brought up the Fourth Amendment issue, and I know in my world in law enforcement, we've had civilian people doing the boat patrol. They can't even write the citation. They have to do a report, and the county attorney has to do a formal complaint because they do not have the authority to issue those citations. Law enforcement issues administrative citations when they can. We have a lot of departments across the state doing that. Your Metro Transit Police could issue administrative citations. Now, my biggest concern about these employees you're going to hire, what kind of training are they going to have? Are they going to have self-defense training? Are they going to have first responder training? Are they have use of force training amongst the beginning of it? Because when you start asking people for identification and that conductor checking for fares wants identification, if they're not a licensed peace officer, I don't believe the person has the right to be forced to give it to them. So we have some issues there. I also have some issues with where this bill is going. There is some issues. Although this year's fiscal note didn't say anything, last year's fiscal note had, if I recall, it cost $6, $8, and $10,000 per year. Costs to the general fund. This bill isn't going to the Ways and Means which it needs to. Mr. Kleistra, with these administrative fees, are those funds going to be distributed into the general fund like we currently do, or is the Met Council going to be taking those funds and using them where they want to use them?
And Representative Johnson, I'm told that there's no fiscal costs associated with this bill because the administrative citation language is permissive as opposed to prescriptive. We can certainly check with Mr. Waltz. Members, I do want to hear the other three bills and vote on them today. Mr. Koistra, quickly.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Representative, the funds that we would be collecting as part of the citation would be going back into the administrative citations program to pay for the administration of it.
Very well. Representative Johnson, are you good? Because I'd like to move on to Representative.
Just a couple final comments. I do have some concerns on this. The state does put quite a bit of money towards Met Council. We're talking in this bill, the testifier is talking up to 54 to 60 new employees. That's some huge costs down the road. I do believe this does need to go to Ways and Means. If it doesn't, I'm going to have to ask my members not to vote for it at all. Even though I like the concept, I think there's some major issues that need to be worked out before it goes any farther.
Mr. Waltz, is there a fiscal cost in the fiscal note on this bill? Mr. Waltz?
Mr. Chair, sorry, having a little trouble unmuting. There is a fiscal note on this bill. It is $0. It again, as the witness stated, it is permissive. I believe there was a slight loss last year because the bill was drafted differently. However, it was not a lot of money because the fines that are issued by the Metropolitan Council police have a very low collection rate.
Very well, thank you. Representative Bodney.
Thank you, Chair Mariani. I guess I'd just like to make a comment. I came into this hearing wanting to vote for it. I appreciate the changes that were made in the bill from last year. I believe it was a year ago this week that we heard this last time. I share Representative Raleigh's sense, because a year ago I was sitting in the committee meeting in person, and my sense of dumbfoundment when we looked at the numbers and the testimony, that just doesn't seem to make any sense. I moved to a pass after hearing the testimony from a couple of the citizens, and I think we're putting everyone, law enforcement, the transit officers riding the train, in a bad light, being the fare collectors. And now I'm at a vote against just on a protest, because the definition of insanity is to do the same thing and expect a different result. We don't get enough money from these fare boxes to even cover the collection cost. I don't know why we bother. If this comes up to my committee again, I'll have an amendment to eliminate the fare altogether, and then we won't have the problems of, some person trying to enforce the collection. Let's just let the Metro officers be there for safety and protect others. And it seems like we're just a dog chasing its tail on these fares. Why do we bother? So I will vote no. I don't think it's enough. Let's just be done with it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Representative Bodney. Representative Pinto.
Mr. Chair, very quickly and all, I suspect actually there would be quite a bit of support, Representative Botany, in fact, to move in that direction and not require collection of fares. But as long as we do, I really credit the evidence gathered by East Metro Strong. I have to say I was really impressed with that series of statistics that they've examined this very closely and have found that this actually will make the whole system be more effective and better off. I've got my own Chamber of Commerce on the St. Paul side is urging us to adopt this. It's pretty rare that they would step in affirmatively on a bill like this and urge us to do it. So I would urge all of us to vote in favor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Elkins, last comments, very, very briefly.
Yeah, no, I mean, this bill passed transportation 15 to 1 on a bipartisan vote. It's a much simpler bill than the bill last year. I think Mr. Shor's testimony was spot on. We're moving to something something that works from something that doesn't work. So we just urge us support on both sides of the aisle for the bill.
Thank you. Thank you for the debate, members. The chair renews his motion that House File 1306 be referred to the General Register. The clerk will take the roll.
Chair Mariani.
Aye.
Chair Mariani, aye. Vice Chair Frazier.
Aye.
Vice Chair Frazier, aye. Representative Johnson.
No.
Representative Johnson, nay. Representative Edelson.
Aye.
Representative Edelson, aye. Representative Feist.
Aye.
Representative Feist, aye. Representative Grossell, excused. Representative Hollins.
Aye.
Representative Hollins, aye. Representative Hewitt.
Aye.
Representative Hewitt, aye. Representative Klevorn.
Aye.
Representative Klevorn, aye. Representative Long.
Aye.
Representative Long, aye. Representative Lucero.
No.
Representative Lucero, nay. Representative Mueller.
Mueller votes no.
Representative Mueller, nay. Representative Novotny.
Novotny, no.
Representative Novotny, nay. Representative O'Neill.
O'Neill, no.
Representative O'Neill, nay. Representative Pinto.
Aye.
Representative Pinto, aye. Representative Poston.
Poston, no.
Representative Poston, nay. Representative Raleigh.
Raleigh, nay.
Representative Raleigh, nay. Representative Vang.
Aye.
Representative Vang, aye. Representative Zhang.
Aye.
Representative Zhang, aye. That concludes roll call with 11 ayes and 7 nays.
Very well. With 11 ayes, 7 nays, the motion prevails, and House File 1306 is referred to the General Register. Thank you, Representative Elkins.
Thank you,
Good
Mr.
luck
Chair
on,
and committee members.
your journey and for all the hard work that you put on this this bill. And you've worked in a strong bipartisan manner doing that. I greatly appreciate that. Members, House File 502 is before us. Well, actually, it's not before us until I make this motion. The chair moves to refer House File 502 to the General Register. Representative Moller, your bill is before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. So House File 502 is a DWI task force bill with a broad group of stakeholders. You'll see in your packets numerous letters of support from the DWI task force, county attorneys, criminal defense attorneys, intensive supervision workers, chiefs of police, sheriff's association, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and Minnesotans for Safe Driving. This bill started through the committee process last year, right before the pandemic, and so it just sort of lost its ground last year, but we're hoping to get it across the finish line this year. The bill does 4 things, and my testifier will explain those things, but ultimately it encourages ignition interlock to increase the safety of our roads and remove unnecessary barriers that make our roads less safe. This is a bipartisan bill, and I've had the pleasure of working with Representative Baker on this. And as Representative Baker has said about our current use of whiskey plates in Minnesota, it's nothing more than a scarlet letter that does not make our roads safer. This bill will eliminate that scarlet letter while also enhancing public safety. And with that, Mr. Chair, I have a testifier here today, David Bernstein.
Very well. Thank you, Representative Moller. Mr. Bernstein, welcome to the committee. You're with the DWI task force. If you've been tuning in, you know that we're awfully pressed for time. So I look forward to your brief testimony. Welcome to the committee, sir.
Thank you, Chair Mariani, members of the committee. My name is David Bernstein, and I'm the chair of Minnesota's DWI task force. I will keep my testimony as brief as I can. For those who are not familiar with the task force, we are a group of volunteers. We are not affiliated with a political party. We are not funded. We care about public safety on Minnesota's roads, and our goal is to eliminate impaired driving. Ignition interlock does that while it's installed. It ensures that everyone who operates a motor vehicle is sober and safe to drive. For those who are not familiar with ignition interlock, it attaches to the device that starts the car. And so you need to blow into a tube. And if the instrument registers an alcohol concentration of 0.02 or greater, the car does not start. Statistics have proven that this is a very, very effective method of reducing recidivism, not only while it's installed, but it also reduces recidivism for repeat offenders at a rate of 39%. So ignition interlock is strongly supported by the DWI task force as a means of keeping our roads safe. We have found through various stakeholders that there are a number of barriers and disincentives to enroll in ignition interlock. And so the purpose of this bill is to eliminate those barriers and to increase incentives for more individuals to enroll in ignition interlock. And this bill does that. As Representative Moller mentioned, there are a number of stakeholders who have voiced support for this bill because it would accomplish that goal of getting more drivers enrolled in ignition interlock and making our roads safer. For the sake of time, I'll end my testimony there, but I will be happy to tell you more about the bill or answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Bernstein. I don't see any other testifiers. Committee discussion. All right, Representative Moller, I'm not seeing any hands up, so I'll let you take us home.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. It's a good bill, and I'd appreciate your support.
Very well. With that, the chair renews his motion that House File 502 be referred to the General Register, or rather, the clerk will take the roll.
Chair Mariani.
Aye.
Chair Mariani, aye. Vice Chair Frazier.
Aye.
Vice Chair Frazier, aye. Representative Johnson.
Aye.
Representative Johnson, aye. Representative Edelson.
Aye.
Representative Edelson, aye. Representative Feist.
Aye.
Representative Feist, aye. Representative Grossel, excused. Representative Hollins.
Aye.
Representative Hollins, aye. Representative Hewitt. Can you repeat that?
Aye.
Representative Hewitt, aye. Representative Klevorn?
Aye.
Representative Klevorn, aye. Representative Long?
Aye.
Representative Long, aye. Representative Lucero?
Yes.
Representative Lucero, aye. Representative Mueller?
Taylor votes yes.
Representative Mueller, aye. Representative Novotny?
Novotny, aye.
Representative Novotny, aye. Representative O'Neill?
Aye.
Representative O'Neill, aye. Representative Pinto?
Aye.
Representative Pinto, aye. Representative Poston?
Poston, yes.
Representative Poston, aye. Representative Raleigh?
Raleigh, aye.
Representative Raleigh, aye. Representative Vang?
Aye.
Representative Vang, aye. Representative Zhang?
Aye.
Representative Zhang, aye. That concludes roll call with 18 ayes.
Very well. With 18 ayes and no nays, the motion prevails and House File 502 is referred to the General Register. Congratulations, Representative Moller. You not only got us through very quickly, but you also got strong unanimous bipartisan support here. Thank you for your work. Hope to see you again yet before the year is out. Next, we have a House File 1199, Representative Klevorn. And I believe Representative Klevorn, you're moving to refer House File 1199 to the Ways and Means Committee. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, may I ask Mr. Walls a question, please?
Yes, of course. Mr. Walls, or rather Representative Klevorn.
Yes, to Mr. Walls, I have requested a fiscal note, but I've not seen one. Based on the fiscal note for the previous year when Representative Edelson carried the bill, I requested the bill to go to Ways and Means. Will there be a fiscal impact for this bill?
Mr. Walls, what can you tell us about a fiscal note for this?
Mr. Chair, Representative Klevorn, the fiscal note was due last week. I had inquired with the LBO last week as to the status of that, and they were checking with DPS. I just checked with DPS during the beginning of this hearing, and they had found that they had the information. It had not been put into the system. I received that fiscal note preliminary information about 10 minutes ago. I forwarded it to Jamel in the chair about 5 minutes ago, and I have it. I can read you the impact, which is it will cost the department $465,022 and $389,000 per year after that for a couple of staff people and materials to basically run the alcohol monitoring system at the department.
Thank you, Mr. Walls.
Representative Klevorn.
With that, Mr. Chair, I would ask that you please hold the bill over for possible inclusion in your omnibus bill.
Yeah, I think it's probably wise. Well, let's have the motion refer to Ways and Means just to have the bill before us, and then we'll adjust that motion at the end of the testimony. Thank you, Representative Klevorn. Moves to refer House File 1199 to Ways and Means. The bill is formally before us, and then Representative Klevorn, you do have an author's amendment. Do you wish to move that at this point?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we can do that at this time if you'd like. The author's amendment is to clarify a loophole that we found in the bill as working with committee members. And what this amendment would do, the original bill states that if you do not own a car at the time you would not be conviction, you would not be required to have ignition interlock. However, you could go out the next day and purchase a car. So we wanted to make sure that we close that loophole, and that's what this language does. It would require you to use ignition interlock for the period of time of your offense. And in order to have it between the time of the offense and the request for reinstatement of your license, you would need to use, if you purchased a car, you would need to use interlock.
Yeah. So Representative Klevorn, there is a change here for sure, but it certainly does, technically speaking, it puts the bill in the form you wish to have it before us today.
That's correct.
Representative, and so I'm sorry, Representative Klevorn moves to amend House File 1199 with the A3 amendment. Representative Johnson, are you fine with a voice, a voice vote, or would you prefer a roll on this one?
A voice vote will be fine.
Okay, very well. Discussion, members. All in favor, I'm sorry, all in favor of the A3 amendment, please say aye.
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 All same sign. Motion prevails. And House File 1199 is amended with the A3 amendment. Your bill is before us as amended. Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Ignition interlock is currently used in Minnesota for DWI offenders. The bill before us today has broad bipartisan support, and moreover, there is broad public support for the use of ignition interlock for convicted DWI drivers. The goal of this legislation is to reduce the number of drunk driving incidents and to decrease recidivism rates. Under the current law, a person whose driver's license is canceled for a third or more DWIs in 10 years or a fourth or more DWI in a person's life must participate in the ignition interlock program to be eligible for license reinstatement. This bill expands the ignition interlock requirement for reinstatement of driving privileges to individuals whose license was revoked for a second DWI within a 10-year period or the third DWI in the person's life. I'd like to thank both Representative Poston and Representative O'Neill for providing support and recommendations to improve this legislation. In your packets today, you will find letters of support from the Minnesota DWI Task Force, Mothers Against Drunk Driving's National Office, the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association, and the Coalition of Ignition Interlock Manufacturers. While I have learned much about ignition interlock, I will limit my comments as I have experts here today to speak to the public good of the ignition interlock program. And Mr. Chair, with that, would you like to address Representative O'Neill's amendment, or would you prefer to go to testifiers?
I leave that to your wishes. I believe you're friendly to the O'Neill amendment.
I am friendly to the O'Neill amendment.
It might be best to just go ahead and shape the bill up and then take testimony. So let me call on, if that's okay, let me call on Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the A1 just simply adds back some language. So when I carried this bill in the past, we made it very clear that if the manufacturer, that the manufacturer should be responsible if the interlock doesn't work. So for example, if they're up in Roseau and it's 30 below and it doesn't work because of the cold, then the responsibility really should be on the manufacturer for towing and repairing of that. And we wanted to make that absolutely clear. And if they never have any issues, then it shouldn't be a problem that way either. But this way, they're responsible if it, for some reason, doesn't work and there has to be towing or repairing. And it was something that had been in the bill before and had passed out of our committee before.
Okay, that's good to know. So Representative O'Neill moves to amend House File 1199 with the A1 amendment. Discussion. Representative Johnson, I see your name up, your hand up, but I think it might have been up before the amendment.
It's for later.
Okay, very well. Very well then. Representative Johnson, are you okay with a voice vote on this one?
Yes.
Very well. All in favor of the A1 amendment, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. And House File 1199 is, as amended, is amended with the A1 amendment. Representative Klevorn, I think you want to move to your testifiers.
Yes, please, Mr. Chair.
Very well. We have two listed, David Bernstein and Alex Ott. I hope I got that right. Gentlemen, as you know, the chair is putting a high premium on brevity, conciseness, and brilliance. And so please give us your brilliant, concise testimony. Mr. Bernstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Again, I'm David Bernstein, the chair of Minnesota's DWI Task Force. You just heard my testimony on the previous bill, and I'll simply supplement it on this bill. The task force is a big proponent of ignition interlock, especially as it relates to repeat offenders. And this bill does address those repeat offenders, and so it is a step in the right direction. These two bills essentially work in concert with one another because it requires ignition interlock as a condition for license reinstatement, and the task force bill that the committee previously voted on allows members or individuals to more easily enroll in ignition interlock. And so both bills are very positive steps towards getting more people enrolled in ignition interlock and keeping our roads safer. And so I respectfully encourage members of the committee to vote to support this bill as well. Thank you.
Very well. And thank you, Mr. Bernstein, for quickly highlighting the two bills so that, you know, because when I first looked at it, I thought, oh my gosh, are we creating one problem in one bill with the other? But you helped me to answer that. Next, we have Alex Ott. I hope I got your name right with Matt. Please, welcome to the committee. State your name for the record. Give us your testimony.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for allowing me to testify today in support of House Bill 1199. My name is Alex Otti, and I am the national president. Close enough. I'll take whatever. And I am the national president of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. When I was 13 years old, I was run over by a drunk boater. I was sitting on a jet ski behind my dad's house on Lake Harrington in Danville, Kentucky, across the narrow lake about 40 yards from my mom and my brother as they were docking our boat. I was waiting for them to finish so that I could dock the jet ski and we could go up to the house. There was a 17-foot bass boat coming under a nearby blue bridge, and I gave my mom a thumbs up to let her know I saw him coming and I wasn't going to move. The boat was headed towards my mom and my brother. My mom screamed. The boat banked it to the left and never straightened up. He hit me from the side going over 60 miles an hour, threw me off the jet ski. The boat went up over the jet ski and came down on top of my body before it sunk. I sustained very severe injuries, including a traumatic brain injury, where my brain shook inside my head and started bleeding in 4 places and they couldn't make it stop. I suffered a broken jaw, a broken neck, a broken collarbone, a lacerated liver, and bilateral shattered femurs. I now have metal rods in place of bone in both of my thighs. When the boat came down on top of me, the propeller landed on my legs. My left leg was under the water just enough that it only required stitches, but my right leg was severed by the propeller. The man who ran me over was 3 times over legal limit 2.5 hours later. Months later, I sat in a wheelchair in a courtroom while the man who changed my life forever denied any wrongdoing. He was charged $250 and left to walk out and reoffend, which he did multiple times. I had 8 emergency surgeries in the first 7 days and so many more in the years since. I spent a week in a coma, several weeks in the ICU, a month in a neck brace, and several months in a wheelchair. To absolutely no fault of my own, this was my new life. The only thing that would have changed that crash is if he hadn't been drunk. This bill would put life-saving ignition interlocks in the cars of repeat drunk driving offenders. Mothers Against Drunk Driving supports this legislation as it is an improvement to the impaired driving law and will hold accountable those who make this deadly choice. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, MAD urges you to please advance Bill 1199. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hadi. Appreciate your testimony. With that, trying to see if there's anyone else signed up. There is a discussion. Representative Johnson.
Chair Mariani, to start with, I have a question for Mr. Walls. Is in the fiscal note, I'm just wondering about jurisdiction. You said there's some 400 and 300,000 each year after that. Is that funding in the jurisdiction of public safety or transportation?
Mr. Walls.
Mr. Chair, sorry, having trouble finding my unmute button. Representative Johnson, this would be a DVS fund. It's listed as restricted special revenue. So this would be one of the DVS funds. It also notes in the fiscal note that Driver and Vehicle Services is a fee-based organization and they recover their costs through fees. I have yet to compare the bill with the fiscal note and see if there is a provision allowing them to raise fees to meet these costs or whether they have that authority in statute because this is a transportation related portion of the budget.
Mr. Johnson, Representative Johnson, rather.
Chair Mariani, with that answers one question. The other question I have on this bill, maybe I'll get back to my other screen here. the author can explain why on lines 2.26 to 2.28 that they're removing the requirement for performance standards on ignition interlock devices be removed from. I would think that we'd want to make sure that the commissioner has the ability to make sure that these devices work properly under precise standards set up by the state of Minnesota and not by some industry standard that the manufacturer thinks is correct, and instead of what the state thinks that should be done properly.
Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Mr. Representative Johnson. I appreciate the question. I would like to defer, if you would please, to Mr. Ed Cohen, if he is on the call today.
Is there a Ed Cohen here?
I am. Thank you, Chair Mariani.
Very well. Please state your name for the record and tell us your handle, and then you heard the question, I believe.
Edward Cohen. I'm one of the owners of Smart Start Minnesota, a Minnesota ignition interlock provider. Chair Mariani, Representative Johnson, the standards that are being discussed as being removed relate to other breath testing devices that are referenced in Chapter 169A.55 and not related to standards that deal with the ignition interlock system. Those standards are contained in Section 171.306, and there is no change to certification standards related to that. That remains a requirement that DVS certify all of the manufacturers on an annual basis.
Representative Johnson.
Chair Mariani, wanted to testify. Thank you for giving me that information. I understand a little bit better now. Chair Mariani, when it comes to the vote, I would, before we close this out, suggest we change the motion to send it back to transportation, because these funds that they're going to need to deal with. So I think they have some issues they got to deal with over there before this bill move forward with the fiscal note affecting DVS funds that are under the control of transportation.
I will take that under consideration. I'm checking with staff right now. Thank you, Representative Johnson. Representative Raleigh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. To the bill's author and the other testifiers, can you tell us what incidences would qualify to install the ignition interlock? I'm looking at Section 169A.55 subdivision 4, and it says a person whose driver's license has been canceled or denied as a result of 3 or more qualified impaired driving incidences. And do you think that this bill would give an ignition interlock to someone who was adjudicated for other impairments, whatever they may be? And Mr. Chair, I don't want to introduce limitations or qualifications on the types of impairments. I'm just looking for what types of impairments would be captured with this bill, Mr. Chair.
Very well. Representative Klevorn.
Mr. Chair, I would defer to House Legal if they are on the call today.
I believe they are. Is that Mr. Johnson, perhaps?
That is Mr. Johnson. Yes, thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, Representative Raleigh, as I understand the question, you're essentially asking what offenses or violations would result in a person potentially being placed on ignition interlock. The ignition interlock program applies only to DWI offenses. Those DWI offenses could involve alcohol or could involve other controlled substances, but it would have to be a violation of Section 169A.20. In addition, a person whose license has been revoked, even if they have not necessarily been convicted of one of those things, may have a prior offense that would qualify. So a person could, in theory, for example, plead to a careless driving offense, which is not technically a DWI offense, but their license is often going to still be, it would be revoked in that situation typically. And under that scenario, that prior revocation would also apply for futures. So under current law, you have to have your third in 10 years or fourth lifetime. This bill would reduce that to your second in 10 years or third lifetime. I hope that answers the question.
Representative Raleigh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. It does answer the question. And what situations would these ignition interlocks help to deter? Is there a classification of impairment, or is it more broad spectrum? Mr. Chair.
Very well. Representative Klevorn, or rather, Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Johnson, please.
Okay, I'll assume that question is directed at me. Thank you, Mr. Chair, representatives. As I'm understanding your question, correct me if I'm hearing wrong. The question is essentially, what does the interlock actually prevent from happening?
Yes.
Interlock is a device that you must blow into before your car starts. There are also rolling retests while a person is driving. So you have to submit a breath sample before you can start your vehicle, and then you get periodic notices as you drive along indicating that you have to retest if you're driving long enough. It only measures alcohol content, but it measures it at an extremely low level. If you are registering any amount of alcohol in your breath before you start the vehicle, you essentially can't start the vehicle. It gives you a short period of time to retest in case there's some sort of mistake or something. Sometimes people will say that they use mouthwash shortly before trying to that may affect there's some dispute about whether or not that's the case, but it does give you a few opportunities right at the beginning. During the rolling retest, if you fail, you essentially get a warning that your car is going to not be able to continue driving, so that you don't lose control of your vehicle immediately or anything like that, but you have to pull over and stop the vehicle.
All right, Representative Raleigh, I do want to move on this. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Representative Johnson, I haven't conferred with the author yet, but I do think there's wisdom in sending this to transportation. If it was something that impacted the accounts that we have here, I would certainly want to see it. We can certainly still act on it later if that's the case, but I think there is some wisdom in that. I know time is tight, but I think that's a smart course. Representative Johnson?
I agree, and so we can get back there so they can deal with it. Since there's funding involved, its first deadline is not quite as critical.
Yep, that's correct. Appreciate your advice. Representative Klevorn, are you amenable to changing the motion then?
I am, and I appreciate Representative Johnson bringing the issue forward. We want to make sure we follow the proper procedures. Thank you.
Very well, then Representative Klevorn amends or changes her motion, or amends her motion, I guess the same word, to refer House File 1199 to the Committee on Transportation, to refer House File 1199 as amended to the Committee on Transportation. If there's no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on that motion.
Chair Mariani.
Aye.
Chair Mariani, aye. Vice Chair Frazier.
Aye.
Vice Chair Frazier, aye. Representative Johnson.
Aye.
Representative Johnson, aye. Representative Edelson.
Aye.
Representative Edelson, aye. Representative Feist.
Aye.
Representative Feist, aye. Representative Grosso, excused. Representative Hollins.
Aye.
Representative Hollins, aye. Representative Hewitt.
Aye.
Representative Hewitt, aye. Representative Klevorn.
Aye.
Representative Klevorn, aye. Representative Long.
Aye.
Representative Long, aye. Representative Lucero.
Yes.
Representative Lucero, aye. Representative Mueller.
Mueller votes yes.
Representative Mueller, aye. Representative Novotny.
Novotny, aye.
Representative Novotny, aye. Representative O'Neill.
O'Neill, aye.
Representative O'Neill, aye. Representative Pinto.
Aye.
Representative Pinto, aye. Representative Poston.
Poston, aye.
Representative Poston, aye. Representative Raleigh.
Raleigh, aye.
Representative Raleigh, aye. Representative Vang.
Aye.
Representative Vang, aye. Representative Zhang.
Aye.
Representative Zhang, aye. That concludes roll call with 18 ayes and 0 nays.
Very well. With 18 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails, and House File 1199 as amended is referred to the Committee on Transportation. Thank you, Representative Klevorn, Mr. Bernstein, Ms. Adi, and Mr. Cohen. Our final bill today is House File 695. Chair Becker-Finn. Becker-Finn, the chair, moves to refer House File 695 to the Ways and Means Committee. We have about 10 minutes here, but I think we can get this in. Representative Chair Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Chair Mariani. This is the second year this bill's been brought forward. It was carried last year by a Representative Purcell, and this is our third committee stop. So hopefully most of you have heard this at one of those previous stops. To really summarize it quickly, this is bringing conformity in our DWI laws for those who are drinking and then driving boats or ATVs or snowmobiles. That's really the simplest way to put it. It looks like a more complicated bill because of the way that House Research has crafted it as far as streamlining it going forward and getting that conformity. So there are some repealers and then replacing some language instead of just editing language. So I will note that it looks like it's a lot more going on, but essentially that's what it's doing, is making sure that we're treating folks the same if they are drinking and driving, no matter what kind of vehicle they are driving. And unfortunately, we've had some incidents in our state in recent years where folks have been seriously injured or killed because of folks driving either snowmobiles or boats or ATVs under the influence. And so I do have Colonel Rodman Smith from the DNR is here. He's available for questions, or he could provide some brief testimony as well.
Very well. Why don't we welcome Colonel Smith to the committee to share a few brief comments. Colonel Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Becker-Finn, Colonel Rodman Smith, DNR Enforcement Director. This is the second half of Little Allen's Law. So a couple years ago, there was a tragedy where a little boy was killed by a drunk snowmobiler. At that time, the legislature made all the criminal parts of DWI the same. This is just cleaning up the back end, the post-arrest, post-conviction for this conformity. So I'd like to thank the DUI Task Force for their work over the last couple of years on this, and a bunch of other partners. And I'll just keep it at that, Chair. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, Colonel Smith. Members, questions, comments? Representative Raleigh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to tell a personal story real quick. My sister-in-law, Erica Vale, her maiden name is Erica Oakes, was riding on a snowmobile on Third Lake in Forest Lake, Minnesota, a number of years ago, and was hit by a car on the lake. And only in Minnesota can you have that kind of a story. And I tell the story by way of saying I've seen the personal tragedy that can come from this type of an incident. I fully support this, and I urge my fellow members to support it as well.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair.
Thank you, Representative Raleigh. Thank you for sharing a painful story with us as well. Representative Johnson.
Chair Mariani, Representative Becker-Finn, thank you for bringing this bill forward. It's one that I've been pushing for a number of years, trying to get the motor vehicle and the recreational vehicle DUIs linked back together. Years ago, they were together, and when statute was written, dividing them up, unfortunately, they got delinked, and the unfortunate circumstances happened with Little Allen because of that. And we're doing everything we can to fix that situation. So thank you.
Very well. Thank you, Representative Johnson. I just learned something here. I didn't know that they had been delinked. Chair Becker-Finn, what can you tell us about the fiscal note on this bill?
I will actually turn that over to Colonel Smith since this is an agency provision that we're working on.
Very well. Colonel Smith?
Chair Mariani, so the fiscal note, when you read through it, it can be a little bit confusing. There is no net loss of revenue. So what's happening in this bill is because of the way the fines are split from the courts, right now there's not a mechanism for if these changes do come into play, that the fines from, for example, a snowmobile DWI, that part goes back into the snowmobile account. And so we're going to be working on that. It's about, you can see in the fiscal note, that $18,000 that would go into the snowmobile account is going to go into the general fund. Talking with some of my counterparts at Minute about how to fix that right now. And I don't want to make it sound like it's not a lot of money, but it would be like investing $1 to recover a dime at this point. And so we need to think of a better way to maybe recover those funds. I don't think it's something that can't be done. There's a lot of smart people that worked on this, and I think we can accomplish that. But there's no net loss of revenue. It's just where the money's going.
Very well. Thank you, Colonel Smith. Any further questions, comments, members? All right, I'm not seeing any. And so Representative Becker-Finn, last few, you get the last word here.
Yep. Thank you, Chair Mariani. And I did catch the testimony on the last bill. And I think that testifier also shared a really powerful story of what can happen in how serious these, same level of seriousness, still the same kinds of bad decisions and terrible outcomes that we can see. And so just really happy to have the support and be able to move this bill forward this year, and hope to get out of your committee and on to Ways and Means. This has been the third stop for this one.
It'd be good to get this one done. There were a lot of casualties with COVID in terms of good legislation last year, and this was one of them for sure. Very well. Then the chair renews his motion that House File 695 be referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. So clerk will take the roll.
Chair Mariani.
Aye.
Chair Mariani, aye. Vice Chair Frazier.
Aye.
Vice Chair Frazier, aye. Representative Johnson.
Aye.
Representative Johnson, aye. Representative Edelson.
Aye.
Representative Edelson, aye. Representative Feist.
Aye.
Representative Feist, aye. Representative Grossel, excused. Representative Hollins.
Aye.
Representative Hollins, aye. Representative Hewitt.
Aye.
Representative Hewitt, aye. Representative Klevorn.
Aye.
Representative Klevorn, aye. Representative Long.
Aye.
Representative Long, aye. Representative Lucero. Representative Lucero.
Yes.
Representative Mueller.
Mueller votes yes.
Representative Mueller, aye. Representative Novotny.
Novotny votes aye, and I thought I could hear Lucero in the background.
Novotny, aye. Thank you. I'll make note of that. Representative O'Neill.
O'Neill, aye.
Representative O'Neill, aye. Representative Pinto.
Aye.
Representative Pinto, aye. Representative Poston.
Houston, aye.
Representative Poston, aye. Representative Raleigh.
Raleigh, aye.
Representative Raleigh, aye. Representative Vang.
Aye.
Representative Vang, aye. Representative Zhang.
Aye.
Representative Zhang, aye. Representative Lucero.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I vote yes. I drive a compact vehicle that is not quiet, so I apologize for the noise.
Representative Lucero, aye. That concludes roll call with 18 ayes and 0 nays.
Very well. With 18 ayes, 0 nays, the motion prevails. And House File 695 is referred to the Ways and Means Committee. Thank you, Representative Becker-Finn. Good luck getting this one finally across the finish line. Members, that concludes our agenda for today with a minute to spare. Thank you all. Good work. Look forward to seeing everyone on Thursday when we next meet at our regular time. Until then, this committee stands adjourned.